recording this podcast, the National Immunization Advisory Committee has recommended that the administration of AstraZeneca be temporarily suspended from this morning in the Republic of Ireland. We discussed that with our today's guest, Joseph McBride. Joseph has a degree from the Institute of Technology in Sligo in medical biotechnology. He works in Pfizer in the environmental monitoring, and he studied a broad range of areas including microbiology, medical devices, manufacturing of biopharmaceuticals, and we had the pleasure to speak to him with Kasia, who was also talking with us this morning. So welcome. So welcome to Scraps of Reason, and our today's guest is Joseph McBride, who is a microbiologist and he's a scientist for Pfizer. Hello, Joseph.
Hiya, how are you, Aneta?
Hi, we are very well here. Kasia is with us as well. Hi, Kasia.
Hi, Kasia.
Hi. So now, Joseph, it would be great if you could, at the beginning, introduce yourself, tell us about your educational background, and then take us through your career path. How did you get into Pfizer, and what are you doing at present?
Well, as you've said, my name is Joseph McBride. My educational background, after school I went to IT Sligo, where I studied the medical biotechnology degree. So that degree is kind of it's very practical based. You do maybe over 400 hours of lab based stuff, so like it's very hands on, and we learn a lot of stuff. It's very It kind of like encompasses a lot of things, so it goes through the medical device manufacturing side of things, as well as the pharmaceutical and biopharmaceutical drug manufacturing. So as part of that, I did my thesis in the biotechnology's role in the production of clinical grade adeno-associated viral vector treatments. So basically, what that is the ability to use viruses to create medications and treatments for just the treatments of what I kind of focused in on was muscular dystrophy. So although it wasn't a lab-based thesis, it was desk-based, so it was kind of like purely kind of theoretical in nature. So after that, I got my first job, which is still my current job, in Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. So what I currently do in Pfizer Pharmaceuticals is I work in the environmental monitoring team. So as part of that, kind of the nature of our job is microbiology based. So what we do is we go into the clean room environment and we take samples of the air and of the surfaces to make sure that they're kind of like up to spec, up to grade, for the production of the medications and the vaccines inside the clean rooms. So we would kind of deal a lot with contamination response. We would help train the operators who actually work on the lines for their kind of like aseptic qualifications and things like that. So that's currently what I'm doing, and just kind of working away.
It seems like you got into this field at the right time. I mean, at the right time for the science. I'm not sure of the right. It could have been premeditated. Was it premeditated? You knew big things and this field are coming. No, but this is jokes aside. That's actually fascinating. And you working in Dublin, yes?
Yes, I'm currently working in Dublin.
Yeah, could you tell us about the site? Because we are not fully aware what Pfizer in Dublin does. So if you could maybe elaborate on this.
Well, we do. The site itself is there's 4,000 people working on site, so it's a pretty big building. It's pretty like, you know, it's kind of made up of like different buildings. So we have where we're based is the quality building, so that's where we have our labs and house our equipment and have our desks and everything like that. Further down the site, then it's kind of split up into different manufacturing suites. So we have a section for there is currently 5 suites in that section. So there's they're just called suite 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we have different warehouses then where they weigh out and dispense the different ingredients that are needed. So if a process needs a certain weight of a certain ingredient, they kind of like aseptically measure that out and transport it then to the suite that needs it. And likewise, then we have a drug substance building where they make medications as well, and, you know, produce media for upstream processing and downstream processing and stuff like that. So the site itself makes kind of like every suite kind of either has a hand in producing. So it's kind of like split up into a chain. So like, you know, one suite might take it so far the process and then transfer it over to the next one. So it's kind of like you're kind of passing the parcel around, so to speak, like kind of to put it simply, like and then we do a lot of work with other Pfizer sites as well. So I know for some of the medications that we make on site, the process is maybe started in Dublin and then they ship it out to another Pfizer company in I think some of it goes to France. So I think they ship it out to France and then they take it another part of the way and then they send it back to us to finish it off. So like it's kind of it's very much a process based on what you have to hand and what you have on site and what you have the ability to do, and then if you need to send that out, it goes out and then comes back. So it's a fairly well-oiled machine at this point. So like I suppose the main thing that our site would make is the Prevnar 13. It's a vaccine given to babies, so it's for pneumococcal. Sorry.
Okay. No, I was asking which vaccine is that. Okay, but you are saying that.
It's for the it's Prevnar 13, so it's 13 strains of pneumococcal vaccine all in one injection for it's usually given at birth for babies. So that's kind of like the main thing that we would make on site at the minute.
Okay, that's great. So now we are here. Thank you for this, and we are here to mainly talk about vaccine for the vaccines for coronavirus, as we already agreed. And you are saying that the site in Dublin does not produce that vaccine. How does that work with the COVID-19 vaccine?
So the COVID-19 vaccine is the Pfizer and BioNTech one is produced in Belgium in the PERS site. So you know, from not kind of being on site and not kind of thing, like we wouldn't know much about the process, but generally what it would be is that they would they've obviously taken the sequence of messenger RNA that codes for the spike protein on the outside of coronavirus. So whenever it is injected into your body, it makes its way to your cells and it will use your own cells' mechanisms to reproduce the protein inside of your body. So your body will recognize that it's not something that your body will naturally produce itself, and it will try and kill it. So this is where it's very important, because if you were very unfortunate enough to contract the coronavirus in the future, your body already recognizes the protein on the outside of the virus itself. So a lot of people are scared when they hear, oh, like, coronavirus vaccine, and you're injected into me, and they think they think that it's going to be able to give them the virus, but in actual fact, it's only a small element of the virus that's replicated inside of you. So like there is absolutely no potential for it to create a virus situation inside, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. And we're gonna ask you because you're able to explain to us, because there's few vaccines now on the market. So we have Pfizer and we have Moderna, yes, and they are both mRNA. And then there's Johnson & Johnson, the one shot, which is DNA based, and then there's the AstraZeneca, which causes lots of controversy just now. And 5 countries, I think, already suspended administration of this vaccine. So it would be great, because you are the right person for this to explain it to us. What is the difference between those vaccines? You already told us how Pfizer works and Moderna works in the same way. Yeah, so we have this messenger.
Yeah.
And you are receiving this information, this message, as Kelly called it, the recipe, and then your body recognizes it when the actual infection happens. So those 2 vaccinations, they work that way. Then there is the Johnson & Johnson one. Can you maybe compare them and then touch upon AstraZeneca and tell us the difference between them all?
Well, I suppose we could start with the Johnson & Johnson one. So the Johnson & Johnson is the theory behind Johnson & Johnson and the theory behind AstraZeneca are actually kind of the same. So they use a harmless virus. So it's an adenovirus. So basically these viruses, like the adenovirus especially, and like the adeno-associated virus, they've been studied for years, and there's all a range of different types and serotypes of these viruses themselves. So they have been well studied. So like the theory and the logistics behind these processes aren't new, although although the vaccine itself is new, the theory and the process behind it isn't new. So what they tend to do is they would take the adenovirus and use elements of that to be able to give the RNA the RNA sequence inside of the they're able to take the RNA sequence for the same protein that the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are targeting. So like they all seem to be targeting the same protein on the outside of the coronavirus shell, if you will. So they are able to take the code for that protein and work it into the code that's already there in the adenovirus. So the adenovirus itself won't be able to replicate when you're injected with it, but it'll provide a kind of like a transportation system for it to get to your cells. So it kind of works in much the same way. All vaccines kind of work in much the same way, but it's just the fact that the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson use an actual virus to transport it to your cells, although it's not a harmful virus, and it's a virus that won't be able to replicate.
It's not the COVID virus.
It's not the COVID virus. Yeah, it's not the COVID virus.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. Like, just break it to very, simple blocks. There is a virus used because the vaccine needs a means of transportation. Yeah, that's what I understood. Yeah, and then this is not coronavirus. This is a different virus which is known and been studied for a long time, and it's not as harmful. And they use it, but the main thing is the protein. Yeah.
The main thing is the protein. What was I going to say?
you see the old vaccine, like how does that compare to the way I'm not talking about the messenger RNA vaccines, just Johnson and Johnson's and AstraZeneca's one, because these are the ones that they are the most controversial, and there's so much to read about them online, and there's so much confusion, and like I just really want to understand this and just take it apart and make it clear for myself first, so possibly for others who are listening too. So and the old kind of type of vaccine, is mainly based, from what I understand, on a dormant virus. Yes, so you get you get a sample, or how you call it, whatever you call it, I don't know, and your professional terminology. You get this a little bit of this dormant virus into your body, and then your immune system reacts to that and produces antibodies. Yes, how does that compare to the way AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson works? Is it similar?
So I suppose the main difference is in the way the older vaccines and the original vaccines would have worked. A lot of the time they probably would have given a live vaccine is what it would be called. So although this could be determined to be a live vaccine, it's not really the same way as what it used to be. So they used to try and I think this is where a lot of this thought comes from, and a lot of this fear comes from, like, oh, they're going to inject us with a bit of the coronavirus. But that's kind of like what they would have used to have done, because it would have been it would be building an immune response to the way you develop a response to chicken pox and things like that. Like you get the chicken pox and then you get over it, but then your body recognizes it again. Whereas the way these vaccines are different is that they're using a different type of virus to transport an element of the coronavirus. So like they're not using the coronavirus itself, they're using a separate virus that's harmless as a transportation system into your body.
Could you tell me about this virus? You say it's hard, like I understand that now completely. So let's say it again. So in the old type of vaccines, we have the actual virus that's the vaccine is against, and the medication, and it's injected into your body, and your immune system reacts like to the disease itself, like you already have it, and it fights it, and then it recognizes it again, and that's how it works. Now, in those two vaccines, which is AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson, you get a virus, but it's not the virus your vaccine is made against. It's a different virus, and it only carries a protein, that's belongs, let's use that kind of language, to coronavirus in this case. And so that's all good, I understand. And you say in the virus that is being used in those vaccines as a mean of transportation, this virus is harmless, yes?
Yes.
How is that? Are there harmless viruses?
Believe it or not, there is. Like, we probably come in contact with them a lot more than what we would like to think. But these viruses have been studied, and like even in some cases, these viruses have been manufactured, for years. But the one virus that I would kind of know a lot more about, or kind of like in general I would know about, would be the adeno-associated virus. So that's the one I did my thesis on. So these until coronavirus, I would imagine they were the smallest viruses known about. But they it all depends on how big big the virus or protein sequence is that you're looking to create versus the virus vector that you're trying to use as a transportation system. So it kind of produces its own difficulties as well as as well as the positives. It has its own difficulties. Like I know, like because some of these viruses are so small, they might not fit the entire code for the protein inside them, so they might have to go for something a little bit bigger, which is probably why they're using the adenovirus from I think it comes from chimpanzees, is it? The chimpanzee adenovirus.
That's what I've read,
Yeah, so like that's something that, you know, you hear chimpanzee adenovirus and you think, oh my god, they're taking it from monkeys. It's probably something that they're able to replicate. It's just the original virus would have been identified in chimpanzees, but now they have catalogs of these viruses that they have, that they're able to manufacture them, they're able to replicate them, kind of for large scale things. So like, although it is known as the chimpanzee adenovirus, like the one that you're getting, probably never seen a chimpanzee. Probably hasn't seen a chimpanzee in a couple of 100 years. Like.
Okay, yes, so I get it. Kasia, do you have any questions at this stage?
No, for now I'm listening.
So now what I would say, like, no, I can't totally understand what you're saying, and yeah, it puts you at ease when you know the mechanism, and that the virus is a different virus and is used for means of transportation, and as you say, I've never seen the chimpanzee really, but for those who really are concerned and anti-vaccine in some way, or been before even the coronavirus pandemic, that's probably is never going to convince people, because you really have to listen carefully. Yes, for us who are not microbiologists like yourself, it might be still alarming for some. Yeah, some people will say like, oh, okay, so it's not coronavirus, but some other virus. Oh my God, so it's even, and it comes from chimpanzees. It's even how, like, you know, the problem is that when you try to explain, and the more you're trying to explain, the more information people get. And then if that information isn't really internalized and analyzed, it's used in a way that it becomes another reason to demonize vaccinations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, completely understand. Yeah.
So hardest to understand and to explain to people, but some are just not willing. Hello,
yeah, I'm here.
Kasia?
I'm here, yeah. Something
happened. Anyway, so that's what I'm thinking. But anyway, we are trying. We invited you here just to try, just for ourselves to understand how does that work really on the micro level, and to be able to bring this knowledge to other people now. So okay, and now we can go back for a minute to Pfizer and to Moderna. So because you already said that, but now could you please again explain? Now, so we have the other two, and now we have Pfizer and Moderna, and they are the messenger, as I call it for short, vaccinations. Yes?
Yep. So the main difference now between the Johnson & Johnson AstraZeneca's to Pfizer and Moderna's kind of way of doing it is that instead of encapsulating the code for the spike protein inside of a harmless virus, what they've done is that they've manufactured there's 4 different fats. So like they're lipids, so they kind of coat the outside of the messenger RNA. So in theory, the lipids are used as the transportation system in order to protect the message inside. So whenever that is injected, it makes its way to your cells, and the lipids are able to transfer the
Hello?
messenger RNA. Hello?
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 Oh,
Am I back?
you are back.
Sorry.
Hello?
So where did yeah, so where did I leave off?
I don't know. Kasia, do you remember? Oh yeah, at the point when you said when it's injected into yourselves.
Okay, so when the vaccination, when you're given the vaccination, these lipids and the fatty layer on the outside that are coating the messenger RNA protect it until it gets to your cells. And then after it gets to your cells, it works in much the same way. It goes into your cells' own mechanisms, and your cells start to produce this protein, and then your body reacts and kills off the protein, and in the process remembers that protein for again, and then when it does see it kills off the virus. So like the theory, once it's inside of your cells, the theory across all four is exactly the same. It's just the means to get it there is the different bit.
So that's the difference. Okay, that's very clear now. Some would be obviously still concerned. The controversy that is surrounding AstraZeneca now, and the decision of these 5 countries to suspend administration of this vaccine is causing lots of confusion. But as Kelly said, the cases of these people who seem to be experiencing blood clots after being given AstraZeneca are not clear because, as she mentioned in our previous talk, as Kelly mentioned in our previous talk, those people might have had the tendency for blood clots before, but that doesn't change the fact that maybe in a way this triggers something inside the organism to make the blood clots. What do you think about that?
Well, my thinking would be exactly the same. Although you can't rule out the it's undeniable, like you can't rule out the fact that the vaccine could be playing a role in that, but it would be very damaging not to look into it and be totally sure that these people didn't have the tendencies to develop blood clots anyways. It could be something that they were going to develop kind of maybe later on in life that was triggered by getting the vaccine and having an immune response. It's also very important as well to look at the vaccine itself and make sure, and to double and triple check that everything is that everything's up to spec with it. The thing about it is that when it could be something that kind of toxicology or I can't even pronounce the word toxicological, if you will, where it could be something that maybe 2 ingredients on the 2 or 3 components of the vaccine might be interacting with some people's bodies differently. Could be dependent on blood type, could be dependent on stuff like tendencies to develop blood clots anyway. So it is definitely important that they kind of investigate that as well.
Yeah, no, that's a bit troubling because I believe that AstraZeneca has been chosen as the main vaccine for the general population in Ireland. So the people who are criticizing it are saying that in the past, vaccine candidates had to prove to be both effective and safe an animal and human tests. Yes, and
Yep.
and with previous vaccines, it usually took years and years to run these tests. Yes, and in this case, which is an emergency case, we only had some of the vaccine were tested for 10 months or less. So it seems like the emphasis was put here on the effectiveness, not on the safety, and that's where the criticism come from. But at the same time, we need to understand that there's nothing we can do about it
Yeah.
because of the nature of a pandemic. Yeah, can you comment on that?
Well, I suppose speaking from the perspective of like Pfizer, because like I wouldn't have an awful lot of knowledge kind of outside of that. But from my perspective, it seems that like the 10 years worth of work would have been kind of crammed in, if you will. But also with other vaccines, a lot of the time the research and development stage takes a long time, but that all comes down to money. So like I feel like a lot of people kind of threw money at this, and they had kind of like unlimited amounts of money to work with from the get-go. And then another thing that really affects the speed at which things go at is the amount of participants that are willing to take part. So obviously like phase 1 trials would probably take place in maybe 10 to 100 people of different backgrounds and kind of different age groups and all these things. And then in the next stage, then they kind of like times that up until you're testing it on maybe 10 to 20 or 30,000 people. But within the process for the coronavirus vaccine, the FDA would have been kind of like more than happy to go ahead with the emergency approval if we had tested it on, I think it was 8,000 people, but over 40,000 people volunteered themselves for the trial. So it has been, before it was ever approved, it had been tested for a few months on upwards of 40,000 people. So I think a few years worth of work was able to be done on this or on the vaccines in such a short amount of time, because it was such an emergency and people were willingly offering themselves up. Whereas in a normal process, people might be just kind of going, I'm not sure if I want to do it, but because it is such a global emergency, people kind of put themselves forward in order to be part of the fight, I suppose.
So to clarify on this, so previously, yes, it was taking such a long time because of the finances and because of the state of human development and our technology, yes, and now because we have this revolution of information and we have internet and we can communicate very quickly, which we're talking about that with Kelly already. So we can communicate, the scientists can exchange their works, and people can gather also. So something that might have taken, 10 years in the past, now can be done even in a year. Yeah, that's what you were basically saying. And
absolutely. When in a normal process, and it will go back, after this, it'll definitely go back to taking years and years and years. But it's the sheer urgency of the situation, and the fact that people are willing to offer themselves to be kind of like a test subject for trialing a new vaccine for the pandemic. I suppose another thing as well that's very important to note as well is that patents that would be put on a product. So if in the past, if a company was developing a vaccine for, say, in an ideal world, we'll say that coronavirus was just a normal regular virus, and it was It was just a normal company that took the time to develop a vaccine against it. The fact that the company would have been developing something for that and would have patented it so that no other company could produce it. The fact that companies are not allowed to patent vaccines for coronavirus in order to number one, level the playing field, and number two, have many vaccines coming on stream at the same time. They're all sharing information. So because they're not going through the process of having to patent so that they're the only company that can produce this vaccine, it also speeds up the process.
Yeah, that's very important. So it's basically like when you really closely look at it and you listen to it, like listen to people like yourself and others who are specialized in the field, and they have an insight into the process making and everything else surrounding the vaccine, from the microbiological level to the logistics. When you think about it, it's actually the opposite what is being exploited in the conspiracy theories. It's the opposite. It proves that the technological advancement works, and we are in a better position than we were. Because I see the contradiction here is that those who are really critical of the process making and of the vaccine making process and of the distribution of the clinical trials, the animal human testing and so on, they say something like, oh, it's too new, it's not known, that's also not true, and we're gonna touch upon that in a minute. It's also new, experimental. We have no idea how that's gonna work. We never dealt with such vaccines in the past, and so on. And everything to do with the production and transportation and logistics of the vaccine is experimental at this stage that we cannot trust it. But at the same time, and they are saying like, oh, because there is the sentiment, because in the past things were better, because there were vaccines that were solid, the people were working on it for 10 years, and actually it's the opposite. That sentiment kind of blinding people from seeing, as you said. First of all, there was a problem with patents that was slowing down the process of exchange of thoughts and ideas and recipes. And secondly, the funding, then also the technology, the way we share information, the way we can exchange, we can even prepare a sample for clinical testing, the people who are coming forward to do so. Like, this is all actually changed for better. It's all actually changed for better. And
it's just kind of the nature of the pandemic, and the nature of it's the nature of the way the world has just come to a standstill. It's people are willing to put themselves forward for these tests because their whole entire lives have changed. Whereas with a normal vaccine that would just be developed in the background for any other thing, for any other disease, it's not posing an immediate and real threat. So people wouldn't be as willing to just put their names forward for it, but it's because it's the nature of the beast. They've put their names forward for this thing to try and be part of the fight, I suppose, to get a solution to the problem, because it has taken the world to a standstill, as we all know, for the past year. So I think people were very, very quick to put their name into the hat and say, look, I'll put my name forward for thing. And I mean, it's very important to note as well that these people, like in a normal clinical trial, people would be paid a lot of money to take part in the trial.
Yeah.
But the trial process for the people actually being injected with the vaccines, it was on a voluntary basis. Like, these were people that genuinely just wanted to help as well. So it's people from all walks of life. It's like in 40,000 people across the world, you're going to get the diversity that you need to be able to.
That's what I was trying to say. The diversity. That's the difference. The difference here should be actually hard, because what I'm thinking now, in the olden days, when they were doing those trials, as you say, there were people who were paid for it, and they were just whoever, like, I don't know, there was a lab somewhere, yes, and they will just arrive from the neighborhood. I mean, like, no, I don't want to make it literal. But that's what it was, yes. And let's say, like, in the 70s or something, like, nobody would be trying to get people from all over the world, and there was some group working on a particular vaccine, and they only had a sample of people from I don't know, from their ethnic background, for instance. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, in a lot of cases, if a country was developing a vaccine for something back a long time ago, chances are that it didn't affect the entire world. It only affected their own part of the world as well. Like, so I suppose that's an important part of the discussion as well. Like, you know, it's the fact that there is such diversity now taking part in these clinical trials, and that they're all on a voluntary basis, you know. So, like, I mean, these things are still ongoing as well. Like, you know, it's not as soon as they get FDA approval that they just stop studying it. You know, these things are ongoing, and they keep going in the background. So, like, although people tend to think, like, oh, FDA has approved it now, that's that, and they're just gonna manufacture it. But the actual fact of the matter is that the studies are still ongoing, and if anything new comes to light, everyone will know.
Yeah, people are kind of scared of saying, okay, we are the experiment is done on us, and that, but, you know, it has to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, and yeah, I'm not saying that I don't share any of the fears. Yes, obviously, like with every vaccine, we all have our reservations. And now, like, I'm thinking about AstraZeneca. Like, I was first talking to my mom. She is 74, and we were discussing, like, I was trying to do some research on the vaccinations and explain to her how it works. Like, I was convincing her that it's fine, it's all good. But now, since so much happening around this AstraZeneca, like, I have my reservations now. Like, my mom is at that age that, you know, and she has lots of other conditions. So yeah, I'm thinking about it. Like I said in the podcast we done with Kelly, every time I was going to vaccinate my son, I was nervous. Yeah, because each organism is different. Yeah, and we all know that, but we still vaccinate because we know that this is an experimental science, and we just have to go along. Did you get your vaccine, Joseph?
Yeah, I did.
Which one was it?
I got the Pfizer BioNTech.
You got how did you feel? Can you tell us? How did you feel when you got it?
So my first injection. Now, I wouldn't be a big fan of needles or anything, but my first jab, I didn't feel anything. Went home, rested up. I was kind of expecting to feel a little bit sick after it. With the first jab, nothing at all. I felt fine, just a little bit of a sore arm after getting the injection. And then for the second vaccine, I kind of felt unwell for maybe 24 hours after getting it. I felt sort of unwell, and just but that also is part of it's part of the side effects. It's part of your immune response reacting. So you kind of have to feel a bit low, because that means your body is responding. Yeah. Yeah, like so, like I mean, if you're feeling a bit low for the 24 hours or whatever the case may be after getting your jab, I know some people had felt kind of felt a little bit low after each jab. I suppose everybody's body's different, but whenever I did get my second jab, I did feel very low now for 24 hours after getting it. But it was, after that, I mean, back to normal. It was kind of like if they told me that there was a third injection, I would be first in the queue for it. I wouldn't be as apprehensive going for it again.
Sure.
Because I was kind of scared, more so for the actual injection itself, because I just wouldn't be a fan of needles or getting blood taken or anything like that. So that was the main apprehension that I had. But I got my vaccine, and if I was to do it again, I absolutely would, and it wouldn't scare me at all.
Yeah, that's an important message, because yes, we need to talk to people who already did get it and to know their experiences now. But listen, I would be very keen on being vaccinated with Pfizer, but I'm thinking that I'm not that keen to go for AstraZeneca. And do you think that Ireland will get more Pfizer vaccines for the general population, or is this already decided and we are just going to do it with AstraZeneca? What is happening now? Do you know anything about it?
I would be of the more so hope. I would be of the hope that we would be getting more. I know that the manufacturing site in Purs is building. So there's going to be less vaccines coming into the country for a month or so. But whenever they have this new manufacturing suite built in Purs, they're planning on producing double the amount that they had predicted to produce in 2021. So I think they wanted to produce 1 billion vaccines for the world for 2021, which is now going to be 2 billion. So I would, obviously you would think that, just kind of common sense, you would kind of think that we're going to get more. So I would say yeah, in the coming months we will be getting more Pfizer vaccines into Ireland, as will every country in Europe, and kind of like across the board.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what was I going to ask? Yes, Kelly mentioned that because she's in the north, so she was speaking about the UK supply, and she said the UK seems to have their own, and we are here in Ireland just queuing with the other EU countries. So she was saying that that's why we should expect more delays. Now, I just want to say something about the production process, because I've just read that article I sent you. That was from New York Times. It was published, I think, on the 13th of March by Sue Halper from the Annals of Medicine section. And this is an article. I will link it below the podcast. Anyway, why this article is talking about the situation in the US. Yes, it's not in Europe. But anyway, what's very interesting about it is that the production process is very well explained there. So, because people might not really know, and I didn't know until I read some papers and also this New York Times article. I didn't know how complex it is. I was imagining that the production process is very complex, but the stages and how time consuming it is. Yeah, so we have to also understand that I will speak shortly about the stages, because someone said, or it was even mentioned in that paper, that this is not a car production line. Yeah, this is microbiology. Yeah, that's the difference. And so first is the make of the plasmid. So that takes a while. Then there's purification. linearization of DNA, and that takes up to 10 days. So that's the very first stage, yeah? And then even if there is like they mentioned there that even if there is like 3 shifts of scientists working 24/7, it still takes 10 days. Then you have to grow the cells, so that takes hours. I don't know how many hours, but let's say another 24. And then there's the incubation period, yeah? And they bathe it in enzymes and nucleotides, yes? And that again takes hours. And then is the in vitro transcription. So you have to add time for that as well. And days later, RNA is placed in bags, is frozen and then labeled, and that takes time too. And after that, then they freeze it at the ultra low temperatures, yes. And from there, there's all the logistics of transportation and keeping it safe and all that, and like so. Just the production, those production stages take a lot of time. On top of that, the article mentions that there is a problem now with a supply of syringes. There's an issue with glass production, which we don't think about it, yes? Like, it's mind-blowing.
We tend to think of like, oh, they're going to produce the vaccine and they're going to produce it in vast amounts. But unless you have a way to actually inject it into somebody, it's useless. Sitting in a vial somewhere, like, you know. But as you said, like, I mean, these things can take weeks to think, because another thing as well that article doesn't mention is, yes, that process takes so long to do and the actual process takes so long, but there's actually background processes happening as well. So, like, obviously, speaking from my own experience in environmental monitoring, all of the clean rooms have to be within specification when that particular batch has been made, and then after that, like, all the paperwork that goes along with that batch, everything will be tracked from the beginning to the end, and then after that, all of that data that is compiled during the process of making any particular batch of the vaccine will be taken to the quality control or the quality assurance team, and they'll review all of that before they even sign off to let the batch leave the company. So that takes time as well, even after the batch is sitting there ready to go.
Exactly. So that's very important.
It takes so much time. Yes, start to finish, it just takes a lot of time.
After like all this, what I just said, I've made notes from this article, plus the transportation, and then you say, your job, yes, exactly. That's what exactly you are doing now. This is another stage which, as you pointed out, hasn't been mentioned in this article, and that's a very important stage. Yes, as you say, what happens if a batch becomes contaminated, like in a way? Like,
throw it out. Yeah, they simply just throw it out. But that's the problem, because. That's yet another problem, because if anything comes up with like, as that article also said, is that, it's very hard to streamline a process that didn't exist 9 months ago. So, like, all the other processes that our company does, they've been doing them for years, and, like, it's a well-oiled machine, whereas they're paying so much concentration to doing this process because it's
hello.
They want to where was I going with that? Because that's so new, everything else has to be looked at throughout the process to make sure that everything's doing right. And if any one thing goes wrong at the paperwork stage when they're reviewing it, or for as you said, like a batch contamination, they just have to throw it out, and like they have to start the process all over again.
That costs lots of money. Process, a lot of
lot of money. And like, I mean, I suppose, like, even if you take into consideration the cost of the materials themselves, but
Yeah.
also you're paying people to be there. You're paying people to, like, that all costs money to have people there working for days and days and days on a batch that might be thrown out at the end. So like they like, everything is tested to the very, very last before it leaves.
So let's say you are at the very end of the process, yes? At the very end.
Well,
before-
we're kind of like we kind of work side by side,
Yeah.
along with the process. So our testing is going on while they're manufacturing, and then
Okay.
7 days later we'll know if anything grows, or if anything contaminated the batch, or if anything had the potential to contaminate the batch, should I say.
Well, how contamination may happen? Because I see there is this human factor here, which we seem to forget, because we think of scientists that they are like superhumans, and we forget that there's this human, factor here, and we expect from them like only like best results. Like scientists can make mistakes, like environment is like, but as you're saying, the contamination can happen. And how would that happen, for instance?
Well, the bulk of all contaminations are personnel related. Like, they're like, like if a contamination happens, which is like, I mean, in my own experience, it's a rarity. Like, it doesn't really happen, but when it does happen, it's usually someone has done something wrong somewhere along the line and just not realized it, or maybe even there could be something in the water system. There could be maybe a water system could have been down for a couple of hours, and then they mistakenly used the water into thing before a process could have been done to sterilize the water system. So like, I mean, it's like everything from the ground up within one of these manufacturing facilities. Everything from the ground up has been designed with the product in mind. So if any one element of that thing, and there could be hundreds, possibly thousands of elements that go into making one particular product, and if one thing fails, it could throw the rest of everything else off, and then it's a case of, well, this batch failed, so where's the problem? So then it's kind of like picking needles in haystacks until you find the problem, because you can't go again until you know that you have the problem fixed, because why waste?
So okay, so that adds to the problem, and as you say, it's more time consuming, because because you can't start until you figure out where does it come from. So it's a very complicated thing. So because at first instinct, you would be blaming, the government isn't doing a great job. Probably there are parts that they are not doing a great job, but it's a much more complex issue. They might be doing a decent job, and yet the manufacturing process is of such, and there's nothing that we can do at this stage about it, that it's time consuming, and things are happening on the way. So while we are waiting, because obviously there is a complaint, we hear complaints about the speed. As Kelly said, there is a big difference between the way the vaccination program has been rolled in the UK and in Ireland. But beside politics, there's lots of other factors involved, and as you are telling us, it's not a very straightforward thing. It's really
it's a fine balance between all the different process. Now luckily it doesn't really happen that often, but it's complex in the background, and it's always working. And like these factories that are producing these things, like I know our site here in Dublin it's 24/7, never ever stops. So like it's there, like any time of the night or day, there is somebody there manning these machines. They're actively working all of the time. So like luckily it never really happens that there's a contamination, but when there is, it throws things off.
Yeah. So what shifts do you work?
Sorry?
What kind of shifts do you work? Do you work the same shift all the time, or like you're saying it's 24 hours? So how the rotation looks like?
So our particular group work extended days. So our particular group don't do nights. So we work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. So we have a schedule that we work off. Sorry?
12 hours?
12 hours, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a 12-hour shift, and we kind of get all of our work done between the hours of 7 and 7. So then we're if a contamination happens during the night, there are people who are on call, but the likelihood is if a contamination happens during the night, they stop everything and wait until the morning, and then we come in, and then we kind of we're able to do swabs on machines for them, and just kind of carry out our microbiology based assessment. But yeah, it kind of tends to work on a long week and a short week. So our group have two sides, so it's an A side and a B side, and then on my long week I'll work 5 days of the 7, and on my short week I'll work 2. So it just alternates long week, short week for ever and ever and ever, amen.
That seems like it's a hard job though, like, physically too. Like, so thanks for that. And thank you to your co-workers there as well, everyone who's involved. We appreciate that. Kasia, anything you want to say to Joseph or ask him?
Everything you've said has been very informative, Joseph, and I think I'm much clearer at and understanding the processes involved now. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. And I'm always glad that I have a tendency to confuse as I try and explain. So I'm glad that I've actually been able to make kind of makes things a little bit easier, I suppose.
Oh no, absolutely.
Well, at least I hope.
Definitely, you were very clear, and that was you gave us a very good insight. Now, Kasia, in the talk we had with Kelly Moy, Kasia mentioned that it kind of the situation with the pandemic exposed people's selfishness, but also what we can say now, and that's true, but that was in relation to conspiracies, and that's how we think about the masks and so on, but we won't be going back to that. But what I want to say, you mentioned the trials, the human trials, and you said people came forward voluntarily. They didn't get paid for it. They just wanted to be a part of the trials to speed up the process and to make the vaccine available for us. And that also shows the other side of the coin. It shows that it also brings to the surface the good. And
absolutely.
That's the only thing that I want to emphasize at the end, because we're gonna be wrapping up. I can hear my son coming, so I think the manager, he's taking over the house, so we will have to wrap up quickly before that. So yes, and we are also very grateful for the job the scientists are doing for us in this case, and we want to thank you for coming on the podcast, and hopefully you will speak to us again if that's possible, and because I'm sure there will be lots to discuss on the go.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was happy to do it.
Very good, Joseph. Thank you so much again. Good luck with everything. I hope at all. I believe it's difficult for you, as you mentioned. That's yeah, you working there. You're doing a very important job. But at the same time, because of the pandemic and the social life and everything else is on stop, and it might be draining. But thank you again. And Kasia, would you like to say something at the end?
Thank you for talking with us, Joseph. Thank you.
We appreciate that. So have a good day, guys.
You too.
And I speak to you soon.
You too.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for having me.
Bye.
Bye.